Hi, I'm Debbie.
And I'm Jan.
Welcome to the Villages 365. Today we're going to be talking about some of the negative news that you might hear about in the villages. First thing was in today's news, so we thought we'd talk about that, is some abandoned homes. So first of all, let's talk about how they end up abandoned. Are they foreclosures? Not normally.
No.
You'll get a rare foreclosure, but most of the time someone passes away.
Mm-hmm.
There's not proper wills, or a family member decides they don't want to deal with it, or we do have people from other countries that own real estate here. I can't even imagine how that would be to probate something from like Canada and the US or the UK or whatever.
Right, and that happened to the villa that was next to our rental. She passed away, and she was from Italy, and nobody knows. It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
So.
And nobody's probably going to come from Italy to try and figure out how to get real estate sold here or whatever.
Maybe they didn't have children or heirs or anything, so then it's just sitting there.
It just sits. So the unfortunate thing for the rest of the neighborhood is there's also nobody paying the bills. So nobody is maintaining the home, basically. So nobody's mowing the lawn, nobody's fertilizing the lawn, nobody's cleaning the mold off. Cleaning the mold off.
And limbs are down, and there have been people found squatters in the empty houses, and they shut off the water and everything, but they did find someone living in there. And a lot of these with deceased owners and HUD mortgages, I think, is some of the problem also, because you're dealing with the government.
Yeah, so what happens is the reverse mortgages, what happens is that people can advance their equity. So the very short version is if you have a home for $100,000, depending on how much equity, if it's free and clear, the government will allot you a certain amount of money. So if you watch plenty of commercials in the villages, Tom Selleck, I believe, explains to you how a reverse mortgage works. But anyway, you can advance money. So what happens, though, is if you keep advancing the money, and their idea was that the property value should continue to increase, therefore they always had their equity position. The problem is, if that doesn't happen, and if they're maxed out, a lot of times the family member's like, I'm not going to deal with this. Let it go back through foreclosure and let them take it and let them deal with it. So
and therefore it sits.
Yeah. And so then the government's got to step in, and the bank that's handling it to do the foreclosure process. But in the meantime, if you've ever been involved with foreclosures at all, you know the banks don't typically get involved with mowing lawns or anything else. They just let it all go until it's gone through the process and resells. And in the villages, that's a problem. So,
and you can spot them when you're driving around. And also, there was abandoned cars. I didn't realize that was a big deal. I do know you can't have a junk car, but there's some abandoned car that seems to be in the news all the time.
And you know what I read? The definition of that is as long as the tires are all inflated and there's a current plate on it. So if your plate is expired and you have flat tires, then it could be considered a junk car and an abandoned car. But as long as your tires are inflated, because they said there was one that was kind of junky, so whoever the homeowner was just reinflated all the tires, and the plates were current, so you can't consider it a violation. But what does happen with the violation, so this is some of the drama that goes along with this, is there is a fine. So there are penalties assessed at like $50 a day. So some of the drama that goes along with this is by the time that it gets resold, there's possibly $5,000, $10,000 in fines. Well, then what's happening is the powers that be are waiving those fines. And so people are complaining, saying, well, why are we even having this system to fine people if you're going to waive them all anyway? I understand the fine line. It's a deterrent to keep everybody kind of keeping their homes nice and neat and maintained. On the other side, I get it. They don't want to gouge people so bad that somebody can't turn around and sell the house or whatever. So, but a lot of times it's an investor that buys them. And so then the argument is, well, why is the investor able to make all this money? Why aren't they paying the fines? And so anyway, ongoing.
It's a circle.
It is. A lot of ongoing drama. So anyway, so that's one of the things that's not so nice side of the villages.
And the next thing, trolls. There's a lot of controversy about people talk about two ladies in a golf cart and a notepad looking at everybody's property. I personally haven't seen that. I don't know if that's true. But there are people that don't follow the deeds and restrictions, and the neighbor might not like that, and so they will anonymously call the villages and say, hey, somebody painted their house purple with a buffalo on the garage door. So then they come out and investigate. But there are some people, there's a big thing about the little white crosses. There's
a huge lawsuit. It's going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. It's tiny little white crosses in the yard. Now there's some areas that their deeds, the restrictions are.
We don't have a problem. Like where I live, you can have lawn ornaments, yard
right,
ornaments,
but some of them you cannot.
Some you cannot. And
especially
so they're
down
considering
south,
that.
They started, saying, because there's a lot of yard art in the villages.
Yeah.
So I think maybe as they put newer houses down there, they were trying to get a control on it. But then somebody brings their favorite lawn ornament from home and sticks it out there, and the neighbor goes no, or the troll or whoever it is. So now they're trying to get it so you can't.
It was an anonymous complaint system.
Yes.
So the problem was, if I got mad at my neighbor for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm gonna find something. So his bushes are too high. He's got mold on his, and so I'm telling. And so then that's where that was kind of coming in. The idea, again, this goes to the both sides, the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's really hard. If I have a neighbor that their home is, let's say, in disrepair, it is hard for me to go over to a neighbor and be like, could you clean up your yard? Could you mow your yard or whatever? That might be an uncomfortable situation. So I think that's what that was born out of, is so that a third party was kind of able to step in and say, look, you're non-compliant, mow your yard, or whatever the issue is. You have a yard ornament that doesn't belong. But the problem is that now it's gotten taken to the extreme. There are stories, mini stories about somebody has owned their home for 10 years. They've had these yard ornaments out there. Somebody else buys the home. They apparently aggravate one of their neighbors, and all of a sudden it gets complained on.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, it was here for 10. And so it's a very awkward situation. Again, a double-edged sword.
And I think they want to do away with that. You have to say who you are.
Yes.
Well, then that's going to create problems in the neighborhood.
Between neighbors, yeah.
So you might as well walk over to the neighbor and tell the villages.
Yeah.
And say, Jan says that Debbie's house has mold all over the north side. Mm-hmm. And so that it's going to be an ongoing, interesting issue.
It is. But there is one, so we're divided into districts, and I think we're down at like 14 districts, I think now. And so those kind of are the governing bodies of a group of neighborhoods, let's just say. So there is one district that has gone against the anonymous complaint system, and they said you have to give your name, and they did say that the complaints are way down. So again, good and bad. So does that mean that their homes are going to get out of control, like anything will be painted whatever crazy color? I don't know. This is what will be an ongoing saga to see how that's all handled going on.
Bigger city, bigger problems.
Yeah So there's a little drama about an expensive water tower down in Brownwood.
There's a windmill down there too. That was part of it too.
Yeah, it was both. And but basically, it's decor. It's not functional. It was put up by the villages, by the developer, back when they put Brownwood in, which has been about 10 years. Very cute. Started getting rusty. They were concerned with the hurricane coming. Didn't seem structurally sound. It needs to come down. So then they were like, well, we need to replace it because it's cute as part of the ambiance and all that stuff. And then I know Jan, she's probably got the price. What was the price? Did you get the price?
The removal and replacement was $225,000. And so since the developer's out of this, then that would be that district that would have to pay for it. And those people were not very happy. Then there are some people say just take it down, and some people think I like it. And especially if they went with it, because it's wood, that's what was rotting down at the bottom from the moisture and stuff was the wood. And if they wanted to do another option besides wood, it could climb to $500,000. But they have put it up, and I don't know if it was really $225,000. I think
I didn't hear what the end figure was, but it was caused quite a bit of drama because of course everybody has an opinion, and so it was kind of nasty to hear everybody's opinions.
Well, and some people are like, we don't need to put the windmill back up. We need more seating, but that square is that size. I mean, and they did stadium seating there, which was a good idea because I think you can seat a lot of people in a small area. But the problem is, as people get older, they don't want to climb up those steps.
And I feel like they don't have as much like ground space then as Sumter does. So it's like, it's almost like they traded one for another. And honestly, I'd rather be in a chair. Most older people would rather be in a chair than in bleacher seats. I hated going to my kids' games and stuff. And I was a little bit younger then. Yeah.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
And they're done that. But yeah, that was a big controversy.
That was a big one.
Yeah. And also along with that was the $1 Million Mile by Lake Miona. And I think it was a good idea. It's very pretty, but I think it ended up costing like $840,000 instead of $1 million, because for $1 million they would have made it wider.
Wider. And but the thing is, so you understand why there was a lot of controversy. Janet and I've talked about this before. So Miona is not necessarily really north, but it's fairly north. So let's just say it is part of, I would say, the northern part of the village. It's kind of central northern. There are not a lot of walking paths up north. So a lot of people like to walk. And the villages did do a much better job as they developed south. So they have more, they have more sidewalks and they have more walking paths and all that stuff. So, but people up north were feeling like, hey, how come they get all the walking paths? We have nothing. So they decided to do this. And I will say, and we're going to do that as part of a video. We're going to go walk it, but I believe that they used like that crushed rubber for the, so it's probably much better on your back and legs than walking on
each side.
Yeah. But I think it's much better on your joints and everything to walk on that. And I will say, it kind of goes from Miona Rec Center, and then it kind of just goes down Buena Vista. So you must have to go down and then walk back. I don't think it's a circle.
No, it's down and back.
It is down and back. Yeah. And so, anyway, it's interesting, but it's busy. Every time I drive by there, a lot of people. So I'm just grateful it's
only walkers, right? There's no dogs.
It is only walkers.
And no bicycles. And then I think one of the questions, who's going to police that?
Well, I can't imagine anybody getting on their bike to ride a half mile this way and a half mile that way.
But the dog thing would probably be the only thing that. But
it did say no dogs, because I have seen dogs.
Really?
Yeah, just when I've been driving by, I've seen people walking with their dogs.
Maybe they decided that would be too hard to police, and so they decided we won't do the no dog thing.
And it's also, they did say, so it's ADA accessible. So the one thing that was part of the drama too is, like Jan said, if they paid the $1 million, it was going to be a little bit wider. But they said that it is wide enough for a wheelchair. So whatever the requirements are, 4 feet wide, I think, on each side. So anyway, so you could, if you wanted to walk, like if somebody was in a wheelchair and you want to give them some fresh air, you can take a wheelchair out there, and it is wide enough for the wheelchair.
Right. The black part, or the cushy part, is 5 feet, and then by the time you put the thing, it's actually 6 feet. And if they wanted it wider, that would add quite a bit of expense,
money to it.
So
we'll
go down there and check it out and do a little video.
Yeah, there's a little drama for you.
All right, the next one is the woodworking building, the Brownwood Wood Shop. And to begin with, it was a $3 million building. And then they wanted some canopies, which were $80,000. And then they needed another $38K for an air compressor. And there was a big controversy of how small of a percent of villagers do the woodworking. Because there's one up here, and then there's the new one down there. Because the one up here, it was a long waiting list.
And so for me personally, this is kind of which we all have, and we've talked about this too. We all have amenities that we use that everybody pays for. Like, not everybody golfs, but everybody pays for the executive golf courses and stuff like that.
Not everybody goes to the pool.
But I did kind of feel like there's obviously a want for the woodworking, and it's apparently a pretty exclusive club. It's not like you ever, like, I can't just go down there and use it I belong, and until I die or don't want to do this anymore. And so,
and you have to do a test. You have to go around and
I understand that, needing to learn the equipment or understand the equipment and we don't want people sawing their fingers off.
I think there's a fee to join.
I believe you're correct.
Because our neighbor joins, and he works there some of the time to offset a fee. So then he helps out and cleans and helps people and stuff like that. But it is a small niche.
Yeah, and for everybody to pay just for something, at least if I don't golf but I decide I want to, I can get on a course.
Right.
If I don't swim in the pools, but I decide I want to,
you can't.
but you can't get in there. And I feel like that's a little, my opinion.
And I get the need for it at the beginning because, I mean, Mark had a big workshop at our house because he had a huge table saw and the dust collector and all that stuff. But when you come here, your garages are smaller. They're actually building bigger garages down south. But when you're in the older section, the garages aren't real big. So I think a lot of guys miss their hobby or whatever.
Which is fair. I just think that everybody should be able to, maybe then what they needed to do is say, okay, if you want to come in, you got to come in on the first Monday of the month between 8 and 9, get certified. You'll have a little card, and then you put your name in, kind of like a tea time reservation.
Exactly.
And so that way, if I want to use it, I can use it. But
you have a project. It's going to take me Monday and Tuesday.
Amount of money.
Yeah. Oh, that's
a small group of people that can use it.
Building. Yeah, and that's a thorn in a lot of people's side there.
Yeah, that's a lot,
especially in that area.
Yeah. The apartments at Sumter and Spanish. So that's ongoing. We'll see what ends up happening with it. From what I last read, the apartments were approved in Spanish. So as far as we know, they are going forward with that. Over the commercial buildings, they're putting some apartments, and then we've talked about, they took out MVP. They moved the old MVP. Now it's another health club. But anyway, they moved that to the theater, and now they're going to build apartments in the MVP building. And Sumter, the residents down there fought it pretty hard, but it seemed like that one slid through pretty quick.
It went through before this one did, because there was one holdout here, because then they got rid of the DRI, the Development of Regional Impact, that was the deal that Schwartz made, and that kind of opened up for the villages, and then the villages threatened to sue the city of Lady Lake, which they can't afford to fight.
Yeah, Lady Lake's a small city. Yeah.
So I think they just decided we'll just let them do it because we can't fight it. We don't have the fees for the lawyers. But Katie Bell's is supposed to be 7 apartments, and then I read somewhere up to 45 apartments altogether on the upper
parts of the commercial. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are concerned about the parking.
Yes.
And if they make them like Brownwood, they're very expensive, and there's a long waiting list, I am just concerned of because they'll have full-time parking, basically, and their carts will sit outside, and their cars will sit outside, which I don't know if I would like that in an area where there's a few bars open late at night. There was some window smashing there
not too long ago.
Just a couple nights ago.
But everybody has to make their own decision. People were saying things about, like the Brownwood apartments. The reason they're popular is because not that we do a whole lot of maintenance anyway on our homes and stuff, but there's zero to worry about. They can walk away at any time. If you hate the villages after 2 years, you just say goodbye, and you don't have to get rid of anything. And it's right in the square. And so they have that option of just walking to the square. You don't have to drink and drive. You just walk yourself down there and stumble your way home. And so I think and people are saying a lot of the younger people coming down like more of the city living. There are people that are suburban people that are city people. Because my feeling is, and this is just me, I would not want to live there because I don't want all those people in my yard all night. And on top of that, the music, I don't know, hopefully they're very soundproof, but I feel like that, even on the golf courses and stuff, that music carries. Yeah. And even when we sit by your house, and you guys are, 2 miles or something from the square. And so it's like, you hear that, and I don't know. So for me personally, it's not my jam. But obviously there are people, if there's waiting lists at Brownwood for that long, obviously people like that apartment idea.
And I think a lot of people were worried about what will happen to Spanish Springs if they do that. But if they're going to do it at Sumter also, they shouldn't worry about it. And then there was the threat of apartments at where Hacienda Hills.
Well, I think as long as they keep the commercial stuff on the bottom, we're all good.
Yep.
So
I don't know. They have to make money too.
Yep. So drinking and DUIs. So if you read the news, you will read a lot of that. And honestly, the ages range. So this is something where there are some people that live with their parents and such down here that are in their 30s. Not saying there's no elders that get DUIs.
Oh yeah, it's from 30 to 90.
All the way up.
Yes. But it's a big city now.
It is a big city, and honestly, we don't have a ton of, knock on wood, serious crime here. So when we read things in the paper, we are reading kind of it's more gossipy news than like criminal news. So, but there are a lot of DUIs.
And there are DUIs that are also people that don't live they're not villagers.
That's true.
They're from Lady Lake, or they can be from Summer Hill, or or somewhere else. I mean, they come here, and there's a popular bar in Spanish Springs. A lot of people like to come up there and drink, and then sometimes they get caught. So, I mean, it's.
And I think too, though, a lot of it is because we've read about a lot of people who accidentally take their golf carts out on the highways. There was a lady that went out on the turnpike in her golf cart, death trap, can't even think about it. But anyway, I think that there's a lot of visitors to the villages that are maybe seasonal people or vacationers of some time frame, and they're super excited to be here, and this is the coolest place ever, and look, I can drink, and I can just get in the golf cart, and no big deal. And then there's an oops, and people do report you to the police, just so you know. I mean, if people notice that you're driving erratically or swerving
around the roundabout the wrong way, or
anything like that, they will call the police, because a lot of times it'll say, police were called because it was noticed that so-and-so was weaving. So anyway,
if you don't, it is kind of a celebration when people first come down here. They think it's like going to college for the first time.
Exactly.
You're a freshman and you're all excited.
Have all that freedom.
Yep.
And now you don't work, so you can just drink and do whatever you want all day. But I will tell you too, if you don't want all of your private information disclosed, try and avoid that. They put a big picture of your paper, get this pretty picture, and then they put on there, Debbie that moved here in 1999 and bought her home at 123 Apple Street for $100,000 was arrested. And so they put it all out there. So if you don't want all of your information, aside from your pretty mugshot and that, and it's not. Some of those pictures are hilarious. These people are like, I mean, they look like, I mean, they kind of look intoxicated. It's kind of, I shouldn't giggle, but anyway.
Yeah, that could be.
That's all you can do is giggle.
Paper next week.
Yeah.
That would be embarrassing.
Yes. Lots of car crashes. So I'll say, we've said it 1,000 times, I don't trust anybody. If your turn signal's on, I don't trust you're turning. If your turn signal's not on, I don't trust you're not. I don't trust you're not going to go the wrong way around the roundabout.
And plus, I thought about this the other day. Why is everyone in a hurry? We're retired. And I tell you what, there are carts that are going fast. There are cars that are going fast. Down Morris, it's a racetrack.
Yeah.
And that's why people pull out, because they see the car way down there and you're supposed to be going 30 miles an hour. And all of a sudden it's here because you thought you had plenty of time. And I think if everyone slowed down, we would have less accidents. And pay attention, and don't,
I've said this 1,000 times too. You'll be driving down the street in a golf cart and somebody gets a phone call and they think because they're in the golf cart, it's okay to just stop. And they just stop and they'll pick up the phone and you think like, are you having a cardiac event? What's happening? And you look and nope, the kid called on the phone or FaceTime. Oh, kids, grandbaby's FaceTiming me. It's time. And you just stop in the middle of the road. It's like, it just, if you just use your common sense, that would be helpful.
And there's people gawking too, when you can kind of tell the newbies. It's kind of cute in a way, because they're just like, oh, pointing here and pointing there. And then they're not really paying attention to where they're going. And they're driving very, very slow, which is safer. But, we get a lot of that too here. But
well, and in the season, in snowbird season, honestly, the roads are just, we feel it. We're like, okay, you can tell people are coming, because you just start realizing now going to the golf course, this used to take me 15 minutes. And you're like, not so much anymore. Yeah. And it's not that people are driving slow. It's that there's so many more people out there. So when you try to cross, like if you're going south, like on Lake Sumter or north on, there's that intersection. They did that wrong. That tunnel should have been under that road, not under the next one.
Yeah.
And anyway, but it is what it is. You got to cross a really busy road to get north or south of Lake Sumter in your golf cart. And you can sit there and there's 20 cars lined up. And so you'll just sit there. It'll take you 5 minutes to get through the intersection. And the problem is that people get in a hurry then. So then one person's trying to turn left if they have the right of way. Somebody goes straight because they're trying to bolt through. And it scares me to death. The driving around here, every time I get back home, I'm like, I made it alive. Thank the Lord.
This is where we're getting our gray hair.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one is the theft and petty crime. So, I mean, Villages is now 140,000. So you're going to have some of that. We have a little bit of a homeless. The homeless people, you read about it a little bit, and then they're kind of shown their way out. And some people have their children living with them, like we've mentioned before. And then there's people with drug problems. And another thing that really drives me are people that take advantage of older people, like really older people. And they will
the scams.
Befriend them and, get in their house and be friends. And then all of a sudden they've stolen their checks, or they've gotten into their checking account, or they've said, I'll do this if you give me this up front, and then they never show. So I did read that the chances of becoming a victim in the Villages is 1 out of 879. And in Florida, it's 1 out of 258. And the Villages crime rates are 56% lower than the national average. So it is a safe place. It's not technically a gated community. You can still get in, but they're just bad people.
Well, there's always some bad stuff. So to me, the theft mostly is people who leave their cars unlocked and they steal
with the key in it.
They steal the change, and stuff like that. For the most part, it's not serious theft.
Yeah, it's petty.
And and every once in a while, so one of the things that kind of ties in with this, though, so as Jan mentioned, a lot of, not a lot, but some people have their children living with them. A lot of times, and this I think this is hard because when the articles come out, they don't always, because they can't, because of HIPAA, so they can't say this person has some mental health issues. There are people here that need some serious help. And so they're living with their parents, and God bless their parents. They're probably doing their very best to help their child. And, so I feel like the petty crimes, this is just my own little personal observation, I feel like the petty crimes mostly are things that usually either involve mental health or some sort of drug problem, which if you can consider that mental health, but drug or alcohol, they're stealing because they need to sell to buy something they shouldn't be buying. So that to me is that all kind of ties together based on some of the things that we read.
And I did also read that supposedly the village of Lynn Haven is the safest village. And I don't know how they do that stat, whether nobody's been broken into or
maybe. And that's kind of what by Mallory-ish, right? Yeah. So kind of in the current middle of the villages.
Right now, middle. It won't be for long.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. And they listed the top 10, and mine was not in there. I was a little hurt. So I'm going to do some policing on my own to get mine in the top 10.
Jan's going to get her shotgun out.
That's right.
Which, speaking of that, if you are thinking about robbing somebody, also know that, first of all, Florida has concealed carry.
Right.
Florida, their gun laws are a little different than other places, and you're dealing with a lot of retired police officers, a lot of retired military people.
Right.
So you've got the chances of you breaking into a house and running into a gun.
Pretty high.
They're pretty high here.
So, I have heard
think
and
twice.
been told by a gun dealer that there's a lot of villagers packing. So,
yes.
And
I'm not surprised about
it's on
that
the down low, but
I
mean, when you get older, you're more vulnerable, and then you will probably never ever use it, but it's kind of a security blanket.
Well, and those are the type of people that live here too, are a lot of retired police, fire, blah, blah, blah. And so there are a lot of people that are used to handling weapons.
Yes.
So anyway, think twice before you break in. That's all I'm saying. The hospitals and healthcare is another issue that a lot of people have down here. Okay, so our hospital is now owned by UF.
Yes.
The Villages Hospital is now owned by UF. So supposedly that was supposed to be a big improvement. I'm still hearing current stories about bad things about the hospital here. I will say, so I'm going to speak to from my own personal perspective. I have 2 doctors here, of which I love and are much better doctors and much better listeners, caregivers, everything else than in Illinois, than the doctors I left in Illinois. Much happier with my doctors. Not everybody says that, okay? Right. So this is my personal experience. The hospital. My father, when he was alive, had a heart attack. He was taken to the Villages Hospital. I felt the hospital was clean. I felt he got good care. From what I've been told, if you have a life-saving or a life-threatening deal, the care is a little different than if you break your arm. Apparently you will sit there, and you could sit there for 8 hours. So, and maybe they're too busy. Maybe it's the population that we have. I don't know. My own experience with the hospital also was, my husband had kidney stones. He went in one time for them in the middle of the night. Their explanation, maybe it was because of COVID, whatever. But anyway, he did not have a good experience at all. Then he went back again because they didn't clear the kidney stones. And I was with him then because you were allowed one visitor or whatever. And I will say the care was much different. He also went in during the day. I don't know. Is there a difference of daytime staff versus nighttime staff? I don't know. But there are a lot of complaints about the Villages Hospital.
And I've known people that have gone there, and it's fine. But, I mean, I think you can have a bad experience with any doctor and or any hospital. I mean, I haven't heard too much lately, but I haven't known anybody that's actually been there or had to go there. But there's a lot of really good doctors. I too like my doctor, my specialist, my dermatologist. Any specialty, it's in the Villages. The only bad thing about it is in the peak season, there's a longer wait to get things done. Because, I mean, Mark tore his meniscus and he couldn't even get into one of the surgeons for an appointment for a month or two. And then now once he sees them, then they'll have to decide what to do and maybe have surgery or not. And then there you are. And by that time, you're kind of over it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So, yeah, the dermatologists have a pretty big job in the Villages because of the
cardiologists.
Yeah. And the Sharon building has a really nice cancer unit. Your imagery, breast cancer. It's a nice building, and it's close to us. And I mean, there's a ton of doctors' offices and doctors here, and they're good doctors.
They are. I just think that they're short because I know that my own doctor's office, like as a group, they sent an email and they said, hey, if you liked your doctor up north, please send us their information because they're trying to recruit because they just have so many people here. Yeah. And so they're trying to recruit more staff.
Well,
so
as it grows, I mean how many more thousand people come, then you're going to need more doctors.
And I don't think there's any plans. So there are some things, if you read into the news, there are some medical facilities that are being built in the Villages, but not hospitals. They have like rehab facilities or like day surgery things that are going in and stuff down in the newer southern area. Right. They are building some medical facilities, but they are still not like a regional hospital. We have Leesburg Regional Hospital, which I had a procedure done there. Amazing. And that's UF, and they're tied to the Villages. My experience there was great. Then we have the Villages. And some people go to Ocala. There is some sort of facility in Bellevue that's a hospital because I know I have a neighbor.
That's where I went for emergency.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were amazing.
Yeah, he's had great experiences there. So usually, I mean, unless he's dying, he's going up there.
And if it's something bigger that's going to be more care, they'll send you up then to the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I've been there twice.
And then, is this really the friendliest hometown?
You know, I want to say yes, but I think like when it was smaller, and I grew up in a small town, everybody knew everybody. Everybody helped everybody. And where I'm from now is a big city. I mean, I get lost there, and it's different. I mean, people are doing their own lives. They're looking like this instead of like that. I mean, we helped some people with their cart the other day, and I was sitting in my cart with the blinkers on, and I don't know, the hazard ones, I don't know how many people went by and didn't even take a second look like, is she in distress or whatever? But I was helping another person. But in the old days, you stopped and everybody stopped. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? So they don't do the song anymore because they don't advertise, because they don't have to. But I want to say the majority of people in the villages are pretty nice.
I think so too, and I do think that people get busy, and that there's road rage on the cart path. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's road rage on the cart path. There's road rage on the roads. And the funny thing is that some of the people, when I'm walking, they'll drive right at you with their golf cart. If I was a turtle, they would be stopping to make sure I was okay, and they would go around me by 100 feet. But I'm a human, so I should just get out of their way. So there are some experiences that I've had that make me sad, because I do feel like, because we've both been in the village, like we moved down here full time 7-8 years ago, but I've been here visiting my family, and we bought our home in 2001. So I mean, we've been here and we've seen it from a different area, a different size, and it was always everybody waved. And so the one thing that I would hope is that as people retire, you're moving down here, take that deep breath. Like, I came from a busy city. I came from a hectic job and a career. Take that deep breath and smile and be happy to be here, and do wave to people when you pass them, and do stop if you see somebody that needs help. You know, I think too with the cell phones, though, to be fair, I think with the cell phones, because I have to say I'm kind of guilty of it myself. I feel like everybody has a cell phone. So if you had a problem, you ran out of gas, you're probably calling your husband anyway to tell him to come get you. So I don't know. I just feel like.
But it was nice to have someone stop and at least ask.
You're right. You're right.
You know.
And I have done it in the past, but I will say, as time goes, see, again, maybe I'm busy. Maybe I'm selfish. I'm headed to golf. I don't have time to help you.
Well, and we were headed to golf that day when the people were.
Because you guys ran in with us at the last minute.
Yeah, they were pushing their cart, and Mark goes, and I saw a couple people. I go, oh, they're going to help him. Nope, they're going to help him. Nope. And then Mark goes, are we going to help him? And I go, yes. And so we went there and helped him. And then, we had left for golf early, thank goodness. So by the time we got them to their house, they were from Canada, and they had just gotten there, and they have an electric cart. They took it over to Hilltop, played golf, and they didn't make it back. And with an electric cart, those hills are going to
Hilltop is one of the originals in the villages, and it's basically mountain goats.
No. So anyway, he goes, I think we're going to get a gas cart. we have left there. But it is the friendliest hometown, and we make it what it is. So
yes, that's the whole thing. It's the residents. And that is what makes this place. You know, I mean, any of your pickleball groups or tennis groups, if it's a bunch of nasty people, you're not going to really enjoy the villages very much. You're going to think it's a bunch of jerks. But if you're playing with nice people and all that, so I try to be courteous and friendly, and I'm sure sometimes though I have my grumbly face because I've been tired or whatever.
I've been known to put that face on a time or two.
Yes. So anyway, but so those are some of our thoughts of maybe some of the things that are the not so shiny spots of the villages.
Yeah, we don't want to be negative because we love it here. But people tend to like to hear, you know, it can't be a la la land.
Well, we got accused of, some guy said to me, what's your angle? You selling real estate? You selling something down there? Why are you so? I'm like, look, we're trying to be honest, and we've said overall we like the place. There are some things that we don't like. And so we try to give everybody an equal perspective, but no place is perfect. I mean, I've lived in several different places and none of them I would tell you is perfect. And this is also included on that list.
We were in Mexico and they've even heard of the villages down there. So, I mean, it's a topic. And when they hear that you're from the villages, they want to know about it.
Yep. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Ask questions if you have any, because we will respond. So have a great day.